Ahoy! The Season 7 artifacts have been announced and we're getting some more detailed information about them here, which gives us a better idea of how they will work. The first one is the new Rapier, Dogor's Blade. This will be obtainable by defeating Ifrit in the mutated Empyrean Forge, and this will have the perk Lava Tip. Heavy melee attacks on either weapon cause 10% burning for 5 seconds and this stacks up to 3 times. Now, I would say for the Rapier itself that is not that great, and for most other melee weapons you're not using that many heavy attacks, and Rapier and Hammer, for example, is a bit of a weird pair. The one weapon that stands out to me as the one where I could see this being relatively effective is in the combination of Greatsword and Rapier. You're already using heavy attacks, and if you don't have Serenity, then maybe this could be a pretty good option to get an extremely high amount of damage out of your Greatsword heavies. You can also use this with SNS with a heavy attack combo, but really you're not getting that much benefit out of it. It is interesting that this 10% burning here for 5 seconds stacks up to 3 times, so a total of 150% weapon damage as fire damage maxed out. Along with that, the Rapier has Transient Strikes and Refreshing Move, which are not really perks you want on a Rapier, so I don't think this is going to be all too valuable in most situations, more of a very, very niche choice. Next we have Shrapnel, which is a musket. You can get this from OPR, I guess it's from the OPR caches. Yeah, it says here Outpost Rush caches. And this comes with Shrapnel Shot. It causes a 10% bleed for 10 seconds on critical hits. And in addition to that, this also has Keenly Jagged for a further 10% weapon damage for 6 seconds. So this bleed is a little bit stronger than the Keenly Jagged one. And it has the 7 seconds cooldown on Keenly Jagged. It appears that Shrapnel Shot won't have a cooldown, but it also doesn't mention anything about stacks. On top of that, you have Vicious, which, as far as I'm aware, is not exactly what you want on a musket. I don't think that's ever really considered for PvP. So this could be a weird PvE musket, because in PvE you're getting crits a lot more consistently, but then you have to play OPR to get it. I'm not quite sure where this would really be applicable. I don't really see any use cases for this over a normal musket, but what's interesting is if this critical chance will apply to your other weapon as well, and if you could somehow make something work with that, with a bleed from these crits. Wouldn't know how, wouldn't know when you would offhand a musket for that purpose, but think, for example, if you were running a full ranged PvE build with something like Fire Staff and Musket as an int build, and maybe you would get the additional bleed here on the Musket as well as the Fire Staff, so it could be beneficial for that, but very, very niche, very difficult to place effectively, I think. So I don't know if this will have any real value. I don't see it so far. Then we have Justice, which is a new earring, which you can get from the Influence Race reward caches. I've stacked up tons of those, so I'm curious if I can just open old caches and get that. That would be nice and easy. It seems like you don't have to win the races, it just seems you have to participate. Like you complete the Influence races, so that might not be a necessary condition. This has Alchemist Ward, which after 20 hits taken gives you a potion surge for 60 seconds to instantly recharge your next healing potion. Specifically healing potion, by the way. I don't know if this is even applying for regen potion. I'm assuming not, even though there's technically also healing. Then this comes with Empowering Toast, 20% empower, and Healing Heart, heals for 10% of max health when using Heart runes. Healing Heart in particular, not really that favored by most players that I know, but earring perks are kind of okay-ish, I would say. The Potion Surge perk itself seems interesting enough to me to consider this. I don't know how effective it's really going to be, but as someone who often finds that most jewelry artifacts are somewhat underwhelming or not really fitting my playstyle, obviously Elemental Band is kind of an outlier there, but that's disabled at the moment anyways. So this could have some kind of application because it is effectively a free pot and the other perks aren't bad. And I want to mention something here that actually applies for the other items as well. You always see that they only have 2 perks and then the special perk, which makes me think they will all obviously have the 3rd perk that you can add, but it also makes me think that they will all have gem slots, because typically the weapons that don't, as far as I'm aware, are laid out differently. So I'm assuming that you will have the gem slot as well as the special perks here. So earring is really just a nice bonus perk if you can except that you have Healing Heart on your earring in return. So I could see this being solid at least. Reminder, if you enjoyed the video so far, consider subscribing and clicking the bell. Next item is Burninator, a Fire Staff. The perk here, Burnination, Fire Staff skills and heavy attacks deal 33% less damage, but cause 15% burning for 5 seconds, and this stacks up to 5 times, so obviously this is a lot more damage overall, 75% extra damage as a burning dot instead of as the initial damage. In addition to that, this is missing a dot here. This also has Keenly Jagged for even more damage over time, and has Refreshing Move, which I guess is not really what you're looking for in a Fire Staff, but it's okay. So this is going to be earned by defeating the Corrupted Leviathan. Not entirely sure what that is. Maybe it's a new thing, but whatever. Either way, I think this one sounds strong enough for it to have use cases. The Fire Staff already gets an insane amount of its damage from damage over time, so that in itself isn't really a problem. It's not really often an issue that everyone is going to cleanse away all of the dots, or that they're instantly going to be able to use enough tools to survive your damage over time because you have so much of it. So I think while this burst reduction is something that I think a lot of people will not enjoy in terms of feeling, and you are also sacrificing the option to run this with another artifact in your offhand, which can in some situations be effectively nerfing your damage, this will probably have some use cases at least that give you an extra overall damage output through this Fire Staff. In PvE, I would imagine, for example, that you're probably going to be running 1 in a group just specifically for this extra damage. But I'm not sure how this stacks with other fire damage, like with Smolder and everything. I'm going to assume that it's a separate dot, much like it's on the musket. And if that's the case, I think there should be some potential in this. Next up, we have Aconite, the bow. This one you get from Viridulon, the Rootbound in Reekwater. And this comes with multiple perks. It comes with Poison Affinity, so it deals 15% more damage to poisoned enemies. And along with that, it comes with Poison Tipped. Heavy attacks apply poison. So in this case, I could imagine that this won't have a gem slot in return because it's 2 separate perks here. And along with that, you have Enchanted, which is nice enough to have, I would say, and Refreshing Move. It's weird that all of these somehow have Refreshing Move. I don't know why that's the theme here. I think the extra damage to poison enemies, assuming it also works on your offhand, will probably have some use cases somewhere. It is going to be difficult to determine how exactly that will be effective. There was one weapon at least where you can get poison damage. I actually forgot at this point what it was. But I think there's a small area where this could be useful. But generally, if it actually loses the gem slot, I think it's going to be very niche compared to running something like Finisher or like Life Taker offhand and putting this on. Even the new spear or new-ish spear artifact kind of feels like it would have more application, but I think this is okay. I think this is not the worst of the bunch with limited use cases depending on how exactly it's set up and how if it has a gem slot or not. I'm assuming not. Otherwise, if it has a gem slot, it would be significantly stronger. The Ice Gauntlet is Earthsea. This is one that buffs Frozen Tomb. We heard about this before. Hitting a target with Entomb's Break will inflict them with Frostburn, slowing their movement speed by 10% and dealing 10% of your weapon damage every second for 5 seconds. I think this is a very interesting effect, but at the same time I think it's extremely niche because, well, it is something that you can only apply after using your main safety tool on the Ice Gauntlet, so you really have to be willing to sacrifice that and take the risk in order to deal a little bit of extra damage, really not that much, and have a minor slow, maybe, yeah, I don't know, maybe you get some other combination in which this is effective in terms of skills with a Frostburn, but yeah, outside of that you have Vicious on this, 7% critical damage and a ref move. I think for the Ice Gauntlet, those perks are actually somewhat more acceptable than other weapons, though I think Vicious is also not really valued here anyways. Maybe for PvE, but yeah, then in PvE you wouldn't really run Tomb, so I don't know. It's a bit of an odd one. I don't see this being used all too much, very niche compared to some of the others. Then we have Heceta, the Life Staff, and that I think will be the standout artifact here. Light Touch enhances heavy attacks after casting abilities, granting allies 30% damage absorption. Since this is based on the heavy attacks, I'm assuming you cannot apply this to yourself unless it gets self-applied when you use a heavy attack. But I'm assuming this is specifically for allies. Giving that damage absorption would be insane. I don't know if this is actually fortify. Absorption is extremely good. Absorption is what you would get from gems. If that is actually the case, that is a ridiculous amount of damage reduction. And it also comes with Blessed, and it comes with Refreshing Move, which in this case means it's basically going to be your best in slot. If this comes with a gem slot, which I'm assuming it will, then I don't see why you would ever run another life staff again, because you can choose your third perk on here. You can lock whatever you want, unless you have any like really good illegal combo. You can kind of just make this into whatever you want it to be. And then you, in addition to that, get an insane amount of damage absorption. We don't know anything about the duration here, but either way, it's just going to be very, very strong. And I don't see much of a reason not to use it. I think every new player is likely going to use it, especially because you just need to defeat Parthenosis and Restless Shore. So it shouldn't even be hard to farm, I'm assuming. Then the Void Gauntlet that we're getting here is Fracture. Now, Fracture is a bit of an interesting one. This is going to be through Darkness events, aka Corruption Breaches, and this comes with Mending Rupture. Increases the Overflowing Essence healing by 100% and increases the Rupture damage by 50%. Now, the Overflowing Essence damage, if we go on New World Database, I can show you real quick. This is actually not the base perk. So if we go to Essence Rupture here, we have this as our main tool, which gives us healing through lifesteal essentially. And then Overflowing Essence is this very last perk, which heals allies for 80% of your weapon damage when Essence Rupture ends or the target is killed. And apparently, from what I have been reading, this doesn't work if you reapply Essence Rupture. So if you have the Refreshing Rupture perk, this healing won't even proc. I don't know if that's true, I haven't verified that, but if that's the case, then that already limits the use cases quite significantly, because this part often won't apply. And Essence Rupture, in terms of damage, it increases damage by 50%, it deals 100% weapon damage. So yeah, if you are like really resetting this often and using this as extra damage, it can be nice if you combo it with a basic attack, but really, this is not an insane damage perk where you're primarily looking for damage. So at 150% weapon damage could be interesting for like a spell-focused Void Gauntlet build, but I think it's going to be very niche. The perks that you're getting in addition are Keen and Ref Move. Keen on Void Gauntlet is surprisingly okay compared to other weapons, depending on how you build it. Ref Move, yeah, I wouldn't complain about. I would like that in a Void Gauntlet build that is focused on Void Blade, but this is specifically not focused on Void Blade if you're going for a Rupture path. So also, again, I think overall very niche. Maybe somewhere it could be useful in a very specific build, but for most players it won't be. I think niche artifacts in general are not necessarily a bad thing, but I think some of these are overstretching a bit how niche an artifact should or shouldn't be, and that makes it a bit awkward. I feel like they're adding too many artifacts per season at the moment, just to, I don't know, give us a feeling of having a lot of content, a lot of things to farm for. I would prefer less artifacts, but more focused artifacts that actually have some significant impact on a specific role without being the must-have artifact. Like, I'm worried with heceta specifically, that it's going to be the one that everyone will need from now on, because it's the only option worth considering. Anyways, that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing and clicking the bell. And if you'd like to support me further, you can do so on my Patreon. Thanks to all of my patrons who I do exactly that, and thank you for watching. SLOTH, out.